Federico Fellini was one of those directors that loved to get under the skin of Catholic Church. He was someone you would call today politically incorrect, because his films often portrayed religion in a caricatured way. In Nights of Cabiria, for example, another one of his great films, he explored the theme of finding happiness through love. There is a sequence in which a prostitute, Cabiria, enters the church and finds people murderously praying to the Mother of Christ. She gets on her knees, begging Mary to change her life forever. However, it does not. In La Dolce Vita, Fellini explores again the theme of happiness and despair, but this time in a different way. While watching this movie, I've been thinking to myself, what was so controversial at that time that this movie has been widely censored from theaters? I've come to the conclusion that maybe it was misunderstanding, but honestly, I can say for sure. I've come to appreciate this film a lot since I watched it, not only for its cinematic perfection, but also for its vague but interesting screenplay. And in this video, I'll be covering that. I don't know if I get it right, what the author was precisely trying to convey, but after all, art should be fun and open for interpretations. So let's dive into it. Before grasping what Fellini wants to convey to us, let's first analyze the opening scene of the movie, in which I find fantastic metaphor for the entire film. What is it? Let's take a look. We obviously see a statue of Jesus being transported above the ruins of Rome. Behind the first helicopter we see another helicopter, flying right beside. By then we are introduced to Marcello, who becomes interested in women looking at him. He tries to talk, but they don't necessarily hear him well. After a while, he gets right back on the track of the statue of Jesus. What does it tell us? Jesus here symbolizes structure, or meaning, whereas Marcello symbolizes a man in pursuit of that, who notoriously fails to be focused on his goal, getting distracted by such things as women with whom he cannot clearly communicate, which also symbolizes that he cannot get anything out of these relations because they simply don't find common language, love. It is a beautiful presage of what the film is going to be about later. Right away after, we see Marcello in a nightclub, hanging out with people, dating, smoking, watching dancers. It is another one of these scenes that, in contrast to the first scene, instead of representing what the movie's central theme is, it represents how the movie is going to feel. Quickly after that, we follow the daily life of our protagonist in high society where people do everything to pleasure themselves. It raises an important question. Is life without pain, is life with all the money filled with pleasures, really a life we want to aim for? The quintessence of La Dolce Vita is the movie doesn't really give us a direct answer, but it gives us a room to conclude it ourselves. What is interesting about it is how Fellini uses subtext in this movie to deliver a feeling. When Marcello's girlfriend, Emma, takes a sleeping pill and passes out, Marcello says to her, who did she want to kill? Him? And he says he will someday let her die, which truly emphasizes that Marcello doesn't really care. He just wants to comfort his feelings. Once she becomes boring, she's no longer important. The next thing Marcello does is he hangs out with American star Sylvia, admiring her beauty and carefreeness. She seems to have the idealized version of living a life, a true sweet life, enjoying the moment. However, it isn't entirely clear whether she truly is happy. Her life seems hollow and it doesn't have more depth to it. In the moment of paparazzi, there is something about her that seems artificial. Her smile, her irritation, it is those moments that define Federico Fellini as truly one of the best directors of all time. One of the more important sequences in the entire movie is that with the children claiming to see the Virgin Mary. We don't know whether they actually see Mary or not, but the media want to exploit and make a spectacle out of it, which again, in pursuit of happiness, they violate the structure, meaning, God, by the very distractions like money, pleasure, increased viewership on the show. We slowly see how from the organized structure, when they are disappointed by not seeing Mary, chaos erupts, and the children die. This movie heavily balances between comedy and tragedy, happiness and despair. That uncertainty in how Federico Fellini directs it is the thing that is very engaging in how we view the entire movie. From one side it's beautiful, romantic, miraculous, happy. On the other, the film is dark, tragic, disappointing and desperate. We love and hate it at the same time, although because we do, we come to appreciate it as it is because it truly makes us wonder what kind of mind it takes to create something like that. What is also worth pointing out is why Marcello can find his inner peace. Although we know little of his backstory, his interactions with his father provide some context. The absence of love in his life and father as well is what may lead him to living a life he lives now. We see he is detached from his father emotionally, but nevertheless he craves the connection. In the other scene, he sits on the chair in a big palace talking to Emma as if they were close, but they are in fact very isolated, which the scenery perfectly presents. Although not only that, but also when he walks up the stairs alone. It is Marcello's lack of commitment that leads him to it. Later they completely break up as they are caught in an argument. We know for a fact that Marcello has writing aspirations. He wants to change his life, be like his friend Steiner. Then he comes to a conclusion that this path is not worth it when Steiner kills himself and his children. In a subsequent dialogue, Marcello says,
Forse aveva soltanto paura.
Parla dello Steiner. Aveva ricevuto delle minacce.
No, nel senso che dice lei. Forse aveva paura di se stesso. Di noi tutti.
It is this moment when Marcello stops believing in happiness. In the last sequence, Marcello has different clothes, symbolizing that happiness can get as far as the pleasures, that he was, in fact, happy. The contrast between black and white may symbolize Marcello's whole life. One is no different than the other. This is how Fellini writes the movie. He cinematically presents the life through Marcello's eyes. Light and dark are the same. Its music also represents the contrast. It's sweet and desperate. Sweetness rhymes with despair, and it also raises a question: are we capable of finding true happiness? What if we can't? Is it dependent on us? Or maybe we are destined to live a life according to our experiences that shape our convictions? Was that what Fellini truly wanted to convey to us? Well, let's look at the last scene. Marcello's friends capture a fish, saying it's been dead for 3 days, very much like Jesus Christ before resurrection. So what does it try to tell us? The death of the spirit found in meaninglessness, but is it over? In the last scene we see a girl clearly communicating on the other side of the water. She wants him to come with her, however he does not understand. Or maybe he does not want to understand. Behind him, his friends tell him to go, which he obviously does. This is a distraction that prevents him from reaching to the girl, which now symbolizes happiness. All you really need to do is cross the water. The question is it over for Marcello? I don't think so. I think the last frame of her smiling is something that will come. Spirit will resurrect on the day 4, not literally, but as a metaphor for the future. And this is the paradox of happiness. If you want to feel happy, you have to focus on being happy, which comes at the cost of pain, which we often ignore for the sake of immediate gratification. Federico Fellini once said, "I believe in the necessity of God because I believe in a man, and God is the love of a man."